Troy Aikman can't remember the game that sent him to the hospital, or the 1994 Super Bowl, and he wasn't alone. The 1990s were a graveyard for the careers of star players whose time on the field was cut short by concussions in a league that refused to acknowledge them. Emotions on the field ran as high as the stakes. The Cowboys were facing their mortal enemy, the San Francisco 49ers. It wasn't an ordinary season game. It was the 1993 NFC Championship. The winner would be locked in for the game of every NFL player's dream, the Super Bowl. The pressure was on Aikman to lead his team to victory, and he did until the third quarter, when he took a knee to the head and was knocked out cold. On the sidelines, Aikman was under concussion protocol and asked a series of memory questions. When the team doctor asked him where the Super Bowl would be played, Aikman said Henrietta, his hometown in Oklahoma. He was pulled from the game and taken to a nearby Dallas hospital for observation. Later that night, Lee Steinberg, Aikman's agent, visited him in the hospital, only to find him in a fragile state of confusion.
He looked at me and he said, "Lee, where am I?" And I said, "Well, you're in the hospital." And he said, "Well, why am I here?" And I said, "Because you suffered a concussion today." And he said, "Well, who did we play?" And I said, "The 49ers." And he said, "Did we win?" "Yes, you won." "Did I play well?" "Yes, you played well." What does that, and so what's that mean? It means you're going to the Super Bowl.
5 minutes later, they're sitting there, they're continuing to hang out, and Aikman suddenly turns to Steinberg and says, "What am I doing here?" And the next thing you know, they're reliving this conversation they'd had 5 minutes earlier.
For a minute, I thought he was joking. And I went through the same sequence of answers again. And his face brightened and we celebrated again. Maybe 10 minutes passed. And he looked at me with the same puzzled expression and asked the same sequence of questions. It terrified me to see how tender the bond was between sentient consciousness and potential dimension confusion was.
While the city celebrated, the quarterback who won the game was laying in a hospital bed, dazed and confused. Even though Aikman was concussed badly enough to be hospitalized, he didn't sit out the Super Bowl the following week, leading the Cowboys to a win over the Buffalo Bills. Years later, in 2000, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones told ESPN that he would push Aikman to ignore any concussion concerns if they were playing a critical game, since all data that we have so far don't point to lasting effects, long-term effects from the head trauma. In 2011, Aikman told the Milwaukee Sentinel-Journal that because of his concussion, he has no memory of playing the game that led him to the Super Bowl. "I don't know what planet I was on. I still to this day have no recollection of ever having played in that game. So whenever I see footage of that game, it's like somebody else is out there doing it." But Aikman was lucky. He returned to the field after his concussion. Others in the league never did. One Sunday, Al Toon was the Jets' top wide receiver. Then suddenly, at 29, his career was over. In 1992, Toon was in the prime of his career, with a whopping 8 concussions under his belt. In November, he took a brutal hit during a game against the Denver Broncos that knocked him unconscious. This was Toon's 9th concussion and the last play of his NFL career. Toon saw a handful of doctors who said due to his lengthy concussion history, he shouldn't risk another blow to the head. 20 days later, Toon announced his retirement. In the 90s, Merril Hoges was a star running back, but his career was cut short after back-to-back concussions sent him into cardiac arrest. Hoges spent most of his career as a Steeler, but ahead of the 1994 season, he was traded to the Chicago Bears, where the negligence of the team doctor nearly killed him. During one of the first games of the season, Hoges suffered a concussion. 5 days later, the Bears team doctor approved Hoges to return to play via phone call. The concussion left him briefly unable to recognize his wife and brother. When he was approved to play, he was still suffering from post-concussive symptoms. Weeks later, in a game against the Bills, Hoges suffered another concussion that ended his career and nearly ended his life. In the locker room, Hoge went into cardiac arrest and had to be resuscitated. He spent 2 days in the intensive care unit. He had to relearn how to read and suffered memory loss, confusion, and headaches. He was forced to retire after being told he risked permanent brain damage if he suffered another concussion. During a game of Monday Night Football, star quarterback for the 49ers, Steve Young, unknowingly walked onto the field for the last snap of his career. Young took a clean blow to the chest. On the way down, his head hit his teammate's knee before slamming onto the turf. He was motionless as team trainers and doctors rushed to the field. He stayed down for several minutes before he walked off the field for the last time. On the sidelines, Young begged 49ers head coach Steve Merril to let him back into the game. Merril refused. He told Young, "I love you too much to put you back in there." This was Young's second concussion in a season that began only 3 weeks earlier. After the 1999 season, the 49ers told Young he would never be medically cleared to play for them again, and if he didn't retire, he would be released. Although he was offered a position as the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos, on June 12, 2000, Steve Young announced his retirement, citing health risks as his reason for stepping away. While the careers of star players were fading out, the NFL wasn't fixing the problem. It was building a cover-up. Next time on Blood, Brains, and Glory, we go back to 1994, when one of the most nefarious entities in the NFL was born, the Mild Traumatic Brain Injury Committee. The group spent the next 15 years fighting and rewriting science to protect the NFL's bottom line. The hits kept coming, only this time they weren't in the field. They were in the lab. Like if you enjoyed today's episode, drop your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode of Blood, Brains, and Glory.